that way you can reference it later if you'd like.
We are recording.
All right, great. So I'm going to keep this super brief, but just wanted to give a quick overview of some things that we released last week. And for anybody who's not familiar with our pricing tool, we're always happy to do a more in-depth dive for anybody that's interested. But one of the things that we added this week was the ability to add rolling premium and discounts to existing dates. And so the way that you can do that is essentially you can add a premium or a discount. So just by changing the rate here, you can do, this would be just a perpetual 25% discount, which generally wouldn't make sense, but you can have that take effect. Like if you wanted it to happen, for just 30 days, you can do a 25% discount for the next 30 days. And you could also set that up to happen gradually so that instead of being 30% on April 29th, it would be, start out, divide that 25% over the next 30 days or whatever length of time you put in here. And so that's one new thing that we've added. And you can add up to 10 of these. If there's more than 10, then we start to wonder, want to help you figure out how to make them more efficient, essentially. So that's that piece. And then the other new feature I wanted to share that I'm really excited about is the ability to set minimum rates by specific days of the week and specific time periods. So basically you can set a custom minimum rate for every day of the year if you want. But one of the things we've seen managers doing most right now is setting minimum rates for weekends. And so essentially you can exclude all your weekdays and then choose the time frame in which you want to set a minimum rate for weekends. So you can grab the entire next year as an example. And then it's going to just pull the weekend dates, the Friday and Saturdays for those. And you can define weekends however you want. You just pick the dates there. You could use this tool to set rates for that, but say, for example, I just want to set minimum rates. I can increase the rate to 249 as a minimum for the weekends for the next year. And then that'll set that floor across the board for all those dates. And you can see here, when you dive into that, it now has that 249 saved there. And these little indicators here show there's a floor. So I promised to keep it brief, and I did. I stayed in my time. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we'll start talking about policies.
Awesome. Thanks, Cliff. So yes, everyone, I gave Cliff a 3-minute time slot to give some art updates. So thanks for doing that while everybody started to join. So we are excited today to be the first day of the Art of Pricing. The idea is that everything that we do every day has to do with revenue management. And it's such a large spectrum of things that there's enough that we can talk about it in a weekly 30-minute conversation series. So today we have with us Kristin Goulet, who is the Director of Partner Success at Rented as well. We also have Jennifer Frankenstein, who is the former owner of Great Ocean Condos in New Smyrna, Florida. And we have Kerstin Weinstein. How do you say your new last name? Doherty. I was like, I promised I would use your new last name since you told me it on Friday, of Home Sweet City in DC. So we are so excited to have these lovely ladies here today to talk about policies. So my background before joining Rented is I actually worked at HomeAway, Verbo now for 6.5 years, and in account management and listing optimization. So really knowing that, seeing from the OTA side and working with thousands of property managers and owners, how easy it is to not have the time to have quality insurance and checking in your listings and your advertising. So while we say the idea today is to talk about policies, we're not going to really dig into the policies themselves. It's a little bit heavier topic. That I think we would all need maybe 30 minutes to chat about. We want to talk about keeping them consistent across platforms, intentionally and unintentionally. Thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that part up that we'll dive into in a little bit. The reason why this idea came up is that Cliff actually recently booked a property, and the cancellation and pet policy on the OTA listing, as well as the direct website and the contract that was given to him after booking the property were all different. This was not an intentional thing. We think that it is, Kristin, why do you think that this happens? Why do you think that sometimes it's unintentionally different?
Yeah, so just to tell you a little bit about my background, before I joined Rented, I worked for a vacation rental property management company here in Charleston, South Carolina area, starting in 2007. And that was really like kind of the advent where the OTAs were becoming much more of like a bigger piece of the pie, right, in the day-to-day operations. And so one of the things for us that we kind of struggled with at that time was consistency, right? Just because if you don't have a process, things are going to get missed. So I think sometimes policies are unintentionally different. Like if you're saying on your direct website, like, oh, the pool heat fee is $250, and you're not putting that on the OTAs or whatever the policy is. Sometimes it's just a lack of like dedicated personnel that's like tasked with making sure everything is consistent. And so I think, for us at that time, it only took a couple of like conversations with guests that were upset about like a pool heat fee, to continue that example or whatever. It only took a couple of those difficult conversations for us to sit down as an organization and say like, okay, we need a checklist, we need a process, we need to figure out who's responsible for making sure everything is consistent across platforms. So I think oftentimes it's like managers are super busy. We all know that day-to-day operations, take up a lot of time. And so I think the inconsistency is often very innocent. It's just like a lack of oversight.
Agreed. And that was really kind of, what launched this whole webinar, or the topic today was just the inconsistencies, the lack of time, and how do we help people to create that kind of that quality assurance within what all you already have to make your life easier. In a practice session, Jennifer completely told me about an intentional reason why these policies would be different. Jennifer, you want to tell us about that?
I do. First, I want to commend Cliff on actually reading the material that was given by the management company.
Yeah.
Because as guests, we know that we don't read. So bravo for that. I mean, we need a class on how to get people to read.
Right?
Definitely.
It's too common. And I'm guilty. I think we're all guilty of it, except Cliff.
So it's almost impossible, in my opinion, it's almost impossible to get consistent across the platforms, because you'll get different cues from your account managers, especially like during COVID, right? They said, hey, if you really make your cancellation policy as flexible as possible, you'll actually move up on search. Mm-hmm. So could you consider, because we're 60 days, cancel 60 days, but during COVID, it's like, cancel in 60 seconds, who knows what's going to happen. So we did actually change the policy to 30 days on Vrbo, just to move up in search. Mm-hmm. If that's really what happened. It did help our bookings. It really did. But then, what happens there is, unless you go into your reservation system and you put in your rules and in your reservation terms that if you book through HomeAway, your cancellation policy is X, but if you book direct, your cancellation policy is Y. And, why we did that too is because it's less expensive to have a stricter cancellation policy. Because if you book through us directly, it's going to be 60 days cancellation, but you're going to pay less. So the traveler gets to choose. So I could book through VRBO and have a little bit more flexibility on my cancellation, but I'm going to end up paying, the ever-loving service fee, and I'm going to pay more, but I have some kind of reassurance that my cancellation is going to be accepted if it has to be less than 60 days. So it's tough, and I don't know if they're still counting your cancellation policy as part of the algorithm search. It might just be like good clean reviews now. Who knows? Who knows what the next thing is that they're going to change it to. So we're constantly bobbing and weaving, trying to make it consistent. But the bottom line is we have to play to our traveler and our booker and what their needs are. And their needs last year at this time, right, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, which turned into 30 days, which turned into 6 months, which turned into a year to flatten the curve. Their needs change all the time. So our policies might change all the time, and that's okay. I think that's okay. But, on Vrbo, right, they give you the option to upload your management contract. You get to upload your reservation. But how many travelers actually have clicked on that link and read those 3 pages and said, oh, okay, well, if I bring Fluffy, I have to pay $150. And if I cancel in 60 days, it's hard to get people, to just read, don't hang your towel over the balcony, please.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and that's a good point right there. Right. And so that's really like, if we really like say exactly what it is, like intentionally, the way that they do it, and Jennifer's company does, and other companies do it too. It's the help and search algorithm, and it really just has, it's different policies, but intentional different policies. Whereas what may have happened in Cliff's situation and more situations where there's not a dedicated role of someone doing it, it is some people are probably going to hate me for this, an unintentional bait and switch. I don't think you're meaning for it to be a bait and switch, but what happens whenever you think that you can bring Fluffy along with you, right? For $4 a night, and I'm just name my head, and then all of a sudden this contract comes and there's a deposit that's there, and you booked a property now close, with a short booking window, because that's all we're doing today. And now you can't cancel because policies, they weren't the same on there. So it's 2 different spectrums of what that looks like. Now, Kerstin, I know that you are a crazy busy individual, as most property managers are. So busy that we have to text you to get on here today. And last week she was on an hour-long phone call, or 2 days ago. That's how my week's going, guys. 2 days ago, you were on an hour-long phone call and couldn't even catch up with us because you were so busy. So how do y'all at your company ensure that this is, happening correctly and checking everything?
Yeah, so I mean, most of that is, kind of on me, as far as my responsibility to make sure we're kind of consistent, or, if there is a method to the madness. And ultimately there is, we do try and kind of keep our direct website and VRBO's policy similar, just to avoid any, let's say, it's a difference of 15 days versus 30 days, what have you, but so that it's not as jarring. And honestly, with VRBO reservations, we don't upload our contract there. We put everything on the listing itself. Any fees, we've also started doing like a Safely insurance that we just put in the house rules that they have to read before completing the booking, which kind of keeps us covered as far as like, well, you saw this, you read this, in advance of anything. But ultimately, when it comes to VRBO, we really try and, not to use the word bait, but lead folks to our website, based on the saving of fees, don't have to pay the service fee, and the cancellation for hosts in VRBO is much better than it is in Airbnb. With Airbnb, because canceling is, we're super hosts on Airbnb. So ultimately, if we cancel one reservation, it's gone for the year. So we do have it extremely flexible there, just to keep us covered. But that said, we also get the dodgier folks on Airbnb. So we like to have that flexibility ourselves, which also helps us in turn when it comes to needing to cancel. When we contact Airbnb, they're like, okay, well, your settings are so flexible, we kind of have to offer you this help. But they are different. Yeah, they're very different. But Airbnb, we're very reliant on in our urban area. The turnover there is super fast. So generally, that's where we put most of our focus, which may not be the best. But ultimately, our policies are close as far as VRBO and our website are concerned. But when it comes to Airbnb, it's like 24 hours, 2 seconds, as you said, Jennifer.
Right. And, and what I'm hearing, it's, this is even bigger than what we thought, where this thought even came up from before, right? It's not only thinking of where should your policy, keeping your policies aligned at this point, it's keeping your policies aligned with what's allowed on each different OTA. So we're on a whole different process funnel, if you will, than we were even thinking about before. And I know, Jennifer, you said that you guys are really good at having every process documented and outlined. How do you do that? And, how do you keep that consistent? And what has that helped, with your company and your employees in general?
Well, one of the things we developed years ago, our entire company is organized in Outlook. And we set up folders for each, owner rule. So when an owner email comes in, it goes to the owner folder automatically. When a web reservation comes in, it goes to the web reservation folder automatically. So we've able to section everything out. But the biggest thing is, if you've ever used Outlook, they have the ability to make an auto signature. And an auto signature can include photos, it can include everything. So we probably developed around 80 auto signatures to answer the top 80 questions. And it's anything like owners saying, oh, well, when do owner statements run? Like, honestly, you've been my owner for 8 years. You don't know when they run. It's the first week of the month. But there's this nice auto signature. All we have to do is fill in their name. Hi, Tom. Thanks so much. Good to hear from you. Owner statements be running next week. Have a great day, whatever it is. Or the process to log in and look at your statement. Owners always need that. So an entire tech note for how to do it. Or where do I put my trash for that certain property where we manage 70 rentals, and we keep getting asked the question, even though, and like I say, Cliff, bravo, you were reading, even though they got an app, a guest arrival app, and click, 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 you could sit there and just, it's so easy to find. They still want to ask the question. So, whatever those questions are, we've developed the auto signature. So no matter who's on, and there's, 7 reservationists, they're not reinventing the wheel every time. That owner's getting the same answer every single time. Click, click there, click, click there, whatever, this condo complex needs to have the names of people on Wednesdays. Click, click, go. So it makes us faster. It makes us need to have less employees, which is nice. Easier to work together with less people, even though there are 16 now. But it's just a way to keep consistent. Tech notes and processes are really important.
And I bet that also gives, eases your mind a bit. Like, I mean, as much as we don't want employee retention to happen, it's going to happen. People, find other opportunities and want to go places. When you don't want to have to be so reliant on one person that do all the processes, and when they leave, how are you going to train the next person? So when you have those processes set up, it's an easy way to get the new person on board, and giving the same consistent hospitality to all your travelers that are coming in. So we actually do have one question or a statement. Jay Keck says, I use different policies for pets, having a strict no pet policy on my website. But then if people email asking, are you sure? Then I have the flexibility to allow the pet if it's a good fit. But by being strict on the website, I don't have everyone bringing their pets. I always document any agreements. I could definitely see where that is a good, where that would work for some people, right? Like, hey, if somebody's going to ask you, are you sure? My one caveat to say there, Jay, is, properties that actually allow pets in advertisements generate a significant amount of more revenue, especially in this new flexcation world. I hate to say this new world. I'm mad at myself for even saying that right now. But this world where the people are actually like taking up their entire family and going on a vacation. Kerstin, do you guys allow pets?
So we actually work similarly in the way that Jay said. On most of our listings, we have a no pet policy in our house rules. But as you know, questions our guests' favorite activity.
Yes.
And especially when they're coming for these month-long stays, they're like, hey, I'd love to bring my furry friend, what are your thoughts on this? And ultimately that we often continue the conversation. We're happy to check with owners, and it does provide the opportunity to, potentially collect some more revenue as far as a pet fee is concerned, if there are allergens, that kind of thing. And honestly, we feel that it really goes a long way with the guest if ultimately they're told no at first, but we make that exception for them. Be warned, you can never ever decline a service animal.
Right.
You will get in some serious trouble with the OTs.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. Are there any other, so I think we're mainly focusing on cancellation and pet policies. Jennifer, Kristin, are there any policies that we are missing that maybe where there are a lot of questions around or a lot of differences?
I mean, I keep coming back to that pool heat example, just because that's one item where if you forget to include that and the guest gets there in October and they're expecting the pool to be heated and then it's not and they have to pay for it, that's generally something that people would be pretty annoyed about. But just things like that are extra add-on fees to the guest, if that's not communicated to them or like a hot tub heat fee or like a hot tub clean fee, stuff like that. Those are things that I think are super important just to call out and share, just because while that isn't like a typical what you would think of a policy, it does really impact the guest. And if it's something where if they don't know about it, if they're caught off guard, they're probably going to leave a bad review. And we know that the bad reviews are one thing that'll push you down in the ranking. So trying to avoid those bad reviews at all costs and just be as transparent as possible about stuff like that. So there isn't a bait and switch, like you said, Talia.
Right. And that's, a good segue was going to be the most part, we're talking about how does this, how does not having consistent policies, hurt or help your revenue, whatever way we're looking at that. And, bad reviews. So, we've talked about many times, it's the algorithm and OTAs. It's the top of all of our minds, whether you are a homeowner or a property manager. And if it's not on the top of your mind, it is something that we need to talk about, and happy to chat with you one off on that. But, negative reviews aren't technically bad reviews, right? No reviews are bad reviews. So you want, no matter what review you have, you want to respond to them, negative or good. Always respond to your reviews, obviously in a diplomatic way, and most times, hopefully, giving your guests a solution or how you're fixing the problem. But I know in the algorithms, there's no magic number that's like, once you have 20 reviews, you've hit the max peak of the algorithm. At this point, it's consistent reviews. So you want to make sure that you're getting the reviews and they're sitting on, and you obviously want good reviews. So you don't want to make sure that, your guests know what's going on. Also, guest retention. That is a big thing. And there's a whole new world of guest retention now, where before we thought guest retention was just year over year. We're hearing more where a family or just, a group of people go to one area and they had so much fun working in that area that they're going to go back in a couple of months, right? So we're in a new world of having that guest retention where it's not just year over year, but continuing your guests to come. Is there any other ways that I might be missing? Brand loyalty, which I guess falls under guest retention.
Well, honestly, just to kind of piggyback off of the cancellation policies, when ultimately we do lead some of those VRBO folks to our website, that really creates great guest retention, because ultimately, we still want to host you. We just want to save you some more money here. And we do have quite a few CRMs set up, similarly to Jennifer with her autoresponders, just, to kind of check in with your guests and, send them these lovely little reminders and maybe a VIP pass to a trolley tour, what have you. So those little, granted, a personal touch is always going to get you the farthest.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, overfeed them the information and just be overly accommodating as far as saving them any fees. And that to me is, even if it's something that's not necessarily a real cost to us, like a late checkout, that maybe we say somewhere on our listing, we typically charge for this, waiving that fee, that will stick with that guest.
I like the way you put overfeed them, because I was going to go to Kristin for like details. We were talking about how adding details in your listing and in your photo captions, which is a whole different webinar I can talk about another day. I can talk about photo captions for hours in it, but it's conversion, right? So turning those lookers into bookers and your conversion, if you're not giving them the details and the information that they need, then you're hurting you're hurting the pay when they see your page to whenever they actually book your page, which again is a part of the algorithm in there. So yeah, that's just a whole other piece. So many factors that go into it. Is there anything else in this, specific realm of things that we have 5 minutes left that we want to chat about, or we want to share, or advice that we want to give?
I want to go back to the pet thing, because this is so shocking to me, what you guys said about pets. I mean, we have 300 properties and 85 of them are pet friendly. Now, the 215 that are not pet friendly, I mean, I might go to that owner and say, hey, they have a golden doodle, like non-shedding, hypoallergenic. I mean, people who travel with their pets, 99% of the time, it's a good pet.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I'm not going to bring my bad pet with me.
Right. We're on vacation. We're on vacation for the pet. Like, I don't have to deal with it, tearing up whatever. I'm going to save some shoes this week. But it's such a money generator that I would always, if a property is pet friendly if your owner is going to accept a pet. So we have really big parameters about that. And you can go to our website, greatoceancondos.com, and look at the rental terms. But we have certain breeds that we don't accept. We have, we don't take puppies. You have to be on a flea treatment. We actually want to see your dog. Send us a picture. We want to know how many pounds it is and what its name is, because, if it does break a rule at a complex, right? The dog's not breaking the rule, the parent is. We're the worst. Yeah. Don't walk your dog on the grass at complexes, right? So we want to know, oh yeah, that was Isabel. We've got her. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it, and we make them part of the family. I need all the names of the people in your family, and that includes Fido. So I just feel like openly saying this is a pet friendly property and this is the pets we'll accept in the long run is a revenue generator, big time. I mean, $200 a week for a pet fee, plus those pet friendly properties, their rates are 10% higher than anybody else in the building because they're going to get booked before anybody else. Our pet friendly properties are booked first.
Yeah, it's a filter in the OTAs now too. So, I mean, you can filter along with it.
If it says no pet, like I'm going to pass your property by when I could have been a great potential guest for you for, a month for a great rate. And you didn't know that, like, my angel Rudy, he is a golden doodle. He's coming with me,
I mean, that's a great point, right? Because while I think it's great that, Kerstin, you and Jay, and there are obviously probably other companies out there are having guests that are asking you those questions. I'm not the person who asks questions. I don't read it and I don't ask questions. Like, it better be like, let me know what's going on. I'm going to book it. I'm just going to assume what's there. I would not think to ask. And like Jennifer said, so if I need to bring my dog with me, I'm going to filter and I'm not going to look at anything else.
Well, I will also stipulate that we call out no pets in our house rules that we manually write, but we do not select no pets as an amenity.
Okay.
So there is that. And also, I'm not sure if it might be somewhat, ultimately like market related, because we're so urban that there's not a lot, I think it's mainly based on homeowners. I definitely agree with Jennifer. It's an amazing opportunity for revenue. Why pass it up? Your cleaners are going to do a great job anyway, especially if they're hypoallergenic. But ultimately it's owner preference, and that is a hard hurdle to get over. These people take their homes very, very seriously, and I think just the thought where their mind goes kind of is just like, no, I don't even want to think about it.
Right. Oh yeah. If an owner says no, completely understand that. But if they say yes, advertise it.
Oh, always.
Like, I think 100% advertise it. I see Seb asked a question, which Jennifer, thank you for responding. What is a standard pet fee? I saw actually, it was Brittany Blackman in 30A posted this on a Facebook Business of Short-Term Rentals group last week. And the responses there's so many responses
all over the place.
They are all over the place on the options of what a pet fee could be. Seb, I will actually add this in to the Q&A after and send everybody and go get all those details together. Because some people do it on different ways.
It costs a lot to board your dog.
Yeah.
And I've never once, I have a 13-year-old Portuguese water dog and a 8.5-year-old golden doodle. I've never boarded them, not one time. I do not think I could enjoy a vacation if I knew they were boarded.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
I'm sorry. So I'm going to play on people's emotions. I'm going to charge them more to bring their dog. But look at the comfort. I mean, that's going to be my next business is doggy daycare in New Smyrna. There's not one.
And you're pulling at those heartstrings of the guests. So that's guest retention there. It's like, I will host your family member for sure.
Well, that went by super quick. It is 11:30. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you specifically Kristin, Jennifer, and Kerstin for joining in today. And I hope that we can have this conversation again soon. Hopefully we can have it in person with some drinks in front of us. An actual happy hour.
Conference season. Yeah.
We will send out a recording of this after, along with, we had a couple questions and answers in there. And if you have any questions or just want to know more about policies or revenue management or rented, you feel free to email me at talia@rented.com.
Thanks, Talia. Thanks, everyone else.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
It's great to see people.
Yes.
I
gotta love to see people. I just booked like my first conference flight and I can't even believe it. I can't believe it's really happening. I don't know.
The light.
All right. Bye.
guys.
Bye, guys.